Okay, my name is Lion Lapini, member of the Athabasca Chippewa First Nation. I reside in a town called Fort Chippewa, Alberta. Northern Alberta, right now, like the environment is under attack, by multi-billion-dollar corporations, and it's within our traditional territory as the Denisotsinane people. And the tar sand deposit there is the second largest in the world. And Canada, the States, everybody wants every ounce of it at the cost of our lives, contributing to our death. And when I say our death, I'm talking about our way of life. I'm talking about us getting sick with cancers. I'm talking about our animals. I'm talking about our water. Family, my kids. So I want to make sure that my kids are going to be telling a completely different story in the future. I want them to tell a happier story, a different story. Because we call it ground zero where I live. Because when it comes to environmental impacts, human impacts, socioeconomic impacts, we're the first to face them all. Being at ground zero, hence the name. It's going to have a ripple effect. It's going to be a global thing in the future. With the rate of development and what's happening in our area, I see Fort Chippewa as possibly the first town to be wiped off the map. Because worth $1 million or $0 to us, it's priceless. It's priceless forever. You can't put a price tag on us. One day we used to go out with a cup. That's all we needed for water. Today we got to carry bottled water out in the bush. We got to take water with us. My grandpa didn't have to do that. My granny didn't have to do that, but I do. My kids are gonna have to do the same thing.
I'm the Dene National Chief. I live in Yellowknife. We're about 800 miles, or probably a little more, north of the tar sands. Well, I think part of the problem we have today is that the number one concern is the economy. And that's fine, but it ought to parallel with people. People have to be the number one concern. In the end, it's going to cost Canada a lot more if it continues the way it is, because you've got communities like Fort Chippewa who are immediately downstream, and then we're just a few miles further. The health effects are really obvious. People are getting rare forms of cancer. That means a person has to get treatment, a person has to be in a hospital, and those costs are not, they're very expensive. So we're saying we're not trying to stop development. Tar sands ought to be able to continue, but money ought to go into research, for example, where it ought to be 1 barrel of oil for 1 barrel of water used to produce. But right now, for 1 barrel of water, it takes 4 to 5 barrels for 1 barrel of oil, it takes 4 to 5 barrels of water. There's tailing ponds which really affect us because they do exist. There's something like 700 square miles of tailings ponds. They're toxic waste that sit there, and they're leaching into the environment, and that's coming downstream to us. We ought to be able today with technology to be able to take the toxins out of that water and be able to use that water again. That's where money needs to be invested, not in the tar sands itself so that they expand and they continue to destruct our way of life. I think to a large extent the decision makers are not aware, but they can't say they're not aware anymore. They call what our people are saying rhetoric, and they need to listen to both sides of the story. They need to be objective. I think they need to talk with us. As I say, we're not going away. As Indigenous peoples, we've always been here. We're always going to be here. And it's time that we sat down and talked about how we might invest together, because that's what it's all about. Otherwise, the Canadian economy is not going to last. It's built on a false premise that we gave up the land belongs to someone else, and that they're going to survive off it. But that's the furthest things from the truth. Our agreements that we have with the state are peace and friendship treaties. They were not instruments where we gave up our land. And that whole argument is either going to end up in the courts or at negotiating tables, and our people are going to, in the end, have a fair share of the resources. And it's got to be done in a way that makes sense to everyone. They're pushing through expansion. There really is no plan. Canada wants to become the #1 oil producer in the world. And the only way they can do that is if they build these pipelines. The one is to the U.S., to the refineries in Texas. The other one is the Northern Gateway pipeline, which would go to Kitimat and off to overseas prices. If these pipelines happen, what it does is it brings the oil prices up about $3 a barrel. And so it's all economics. People like former Premier Peter Lougheed is now speaking out and saying he was the premier when all of this development started. This has gotten way out of hand. This was not the intention of the Alberta government when they started on the tar sands in the 70s. Someone here mentioned today that there's an aquifer there. It's called the Aglola Aquifer. The pipeline is proposed to go underneath the aquifer. And if there's a spill there, that'll destroy the water for some 4 million people. That doesn't make sense. The TransCanada pipeline company that's proposing to build this pipeline has a terrible record. The existing Keystone that they built had 14 spills in 12 months. They shut the pipeline down in May for a while, but it's back going again.
Living down at the heart of ground zero of the tar sands extraction is the complete decimation of our natural resources and the pollution, or polluting the remaining resources as well, the land, the earth, the air, and the water. Everything is at risk. Every animal and life form that is around the tar sands and south of, or downstream of the tar sands is at risk right now. As it stands right now, if nothing changes, you have to kill people. You have to send these pollutants downstream to the members of different communities that are affected by it. They're dying of rare cancers. There's cancer clusters, things we haven't seen ever in our history. And they're dying right now. And the Indigenous history has always been about genocide, wave after wave of genocide. Residential schools, germ warfare, the Indian Wars, these are all acts of genocide. I would call this an industrial genocide because it destroys our culture. We are the land, and the land is us. When you destroy the land, you destroy us. We're not asking for this. We're born into this now. We're born into this tar sands extraction process. Our culture, our land, our Indigenous identity, all that ancient wisdom is at risk. It's dying right now. If we don't change it, it's gone.
Unless we say change that direction,